So I want to put an exclamation point on the Henry Ruggs III situation. We'll do that a little bit later in the show, rather early in the show. Shame on you if you step to the old dirty Beckham. He's been released and he's on the move again. We'll talk about that today for sure. We'll get to some leftovers from last night's game, and then we'll get to my money picks of the week. Jam-packed show, lot to get to. And it's fitting that you see the championship belt right behind me, and you see this cap that I'm wearing. I got some work to do to hold on to the strap, but I'm encouraged and I'm motivated by the Atlanta Braves. Game recognized game. Champs recognized champs. And the Braves said to me, bruh, you looking familiar. Who else could it be but me, your man, Louie T? Welcome to the 220th installment of the Louie T Network podcast. I, of course, am your set man, Louie T. Thank you for joining me. I don't have a lot of time to waste today. It's Friday. You know, I don't like impeding on your Fridays. I actually like to get these Friday pods out of the way a lot earlier, but I was so consumed with other things going on that happened a little bit later. So better late than never. I mean, it could be worse. I could have not showed up, and I've been doing that a lot lately. So I'm just happy to be here. You know what I'm saying? Anyway, I want to touch on something real quick. I hate starting out on these really heavy notes, you know, these heavy topics, but it has to be done. So, Henry Ruggs III, since the last time we spoke, has been released by the Las Vegas Raiders. It happened not too long after the podcast on Wednesday. And so, or Tuesday, actually. So, I was shocked. I'm not going to lie to you. I didn't expect the Raiders to move as swiftly as they did. You know what I mean? Like, that's been the new trend in the NFL. When someone does something egregious, they're released like almost simultaneously with the news breaking that they did something egregious. And teams are trying to be more proactive, get out in front of these things. And I don't often agree with Mike Florio of Pro Football Talk. As a matter of fact, I can't stand the man. I don't know him personally, but I don't agree with a lot of his viewpoints, and we don't see eye to eye. I remember once upon a time, me and my buddy, when Pro Football Talk first started to gain traction, we were all over it. I mean, my God, we were on the site constantly refreshing it, looking for new stories. Like, this guy came out of nowhere, and he's got the inside scoop, and it's better than ESPN, it's better than Fox Sports, it's better than CBS Sports. Like, this guy's on it. Who is this guy? And somewhere along that way of him starting to blow up, his head got big, and he got out of his lane a bit. And we went our separate ways, amicably. Again, I try to, keep it cordial, but he's not my favorite guy. Let's just say that. Anyway, I ran into him talking about Henry Ruggs III, and I don't know how I ran into it. I was either on a site and the video just played automatically, or I was at the gym. Somewhere I saw him talking about, I think I ran into it on the site, and it just played, and I was like, where the hell is this coming from? Don't you hate when you hit a site and a random video starts playing and you can't figure out where the hell it's coming from so you can stop it? That's what happened to me that time. And so he's talking about Ruggs, and he said, you know what? I don't agree with the Raiders here. Right now, look, the act that caused a life to be lost is something that we all can acknowledge was avoidable, and it was something that didn't need to happen. But he's also super young, and he's super vulnerable right now. Like, yeah, a life has been lost. And that sucks. I feel for that family, and I've read a couple of articles regarding that family, and it almost doesn't seem real to them right now. They expect their sister, their daughter, their loved one to walk through the door with her dog any minute now, and it still hasn't hit them that she's not coming home. So that's rough. But there are two sides to this story, as with every story. And one life has already been lost, and you don't want it to be two. He needs to pay for what he did, but he doesn't need to end up in a coffin as well. If it was going to happen, the accident is when it should have happened. It didn't. So now he needs to pay. And maybe when he's paid his debt to society, if he ever sees the light of day, which the sentence that it carries, if they don't start stacking them on top of one another, and they let him serve them I'll just say this. The situation is what it is. I don't think that the Raiders were really thinking about this from the Henry Ruggs III perspective. They were thinking about it from a PR perspective. Hey, this guy did something egregious. We gotta detach ourselves from him. We gotta remove ourselves from the situation. It needs to say former Vegas Raiders wide receiver Henry Ruggs, not current Raiders wide receiver Henry Ruggs. So much was happening to that young man, and his world was crumbling. Everything he worked for in his life, literally, and again, he made a poor decision. Kids make poor decisions. He's not a little kid, but I always hearken back to the documentary, and I think it's one of the best 30 for 30s. And there have been a lot of great 30 for 30s. Don't get me started. But one of my favorites is Broke. Because a lot of people can't understand what it's like to be that young and all of a sudden come into that kind of money that quickly. And if you are in the right frame of mind, if you were raised a certain way and you come from a background that allows you to think rationally about situations, then you can't understand what it's like when you've been dirt poor. You had nothing growing up. You come from a neighborhood where you're lucky if you see 16 and you make it out. You're one of the few lucky ones that makes it out. And now you got all this money coming to you. It's really easy to make some foolish decisions. And he made one. One that cost someone their life, but also cost him his livelihood. But he was so vulnerable in that moment that the Raiders getting rid of him felt like that could send him over the edge. And next thing we know, we hear of Henry Ruggs committing suicide. And that was the fear. Like, you didn't need to pile on him yet. They could have waited. He was never going to play another down for the Vegas Raiders. You didn't have to make that move right then and there. They could have waited a week. They could have waited 2 weeks and said, all right, Henry, this is what's going to happen. But that's the day and age that we live in. No one wants the negative press. Everyone wants to get out in front of a story. Hey, we did the right thing. We got rid of him. You were going to get rid of him anyway. You didn't have to do it literally 24 hours after the accident. Anyway, long story short, I'm not looking for people to be sympathetic to Henry Ruggs. He made a massive mistake. Someone lost their life, okay? I'm just saying 2 lives don't need to be lost now. And I didn't think the Raiders acted responsibly in their decision to cut him in the moment that they did. They could have waited. There was so much being poured onto his shoulders. Don't think he didn't feel bad about what he did. He not only killed a woman and her dog, he endangered the lives of him and his girlfriend who was in the car with him. Like, he was really out of control. He knows his life is over. Football career is done. He's going to prison. He knows he just effed up. Let him take a second to let everything sink in. And then you say, hey, Henry, bruh, you got to go. But long story short, he made a massive mistake. When you're young and you got all this money and you think you're invincible, that's the biggest thing. Has nothing to do with having money. It's thinking that you're invincible. He thought he was invincible. That's the only reason you go 156 miles per hour on a residential street. He wasn't even on the interstate. He was drunk and he thought he was untouchable. A lot of these athletes do. And I've had this conversation with you guys before. This is why I say it's really toxic that fans put these athletes on pedestals sometimes, because these guys don't think their shit stinks sometimes. It's a shame. It happened. I feel for the family who had a loved one taken from them way too soon. And I feel for Henry Ruggs too. And I thought Derek Carr's comments were clutch. I thought he is the poster child for what forgiveness is supposed to look like. Even going back to the John Gruden situation where he was like, hate the sin, love the man. And you know Derek Carr's heavily religious, if you didn't know. So he said, look, he felt bad. He felt like, was there something more I could have done? Did he not know that he could have called me at 3 a.m. and I would have come and gotten? Did he not know that I was here for him? Did I not make that clear enough? Like, I was like, hey, Derek, don't beat yourself up, bro. Don't beat yourself up. But he said, I know no one right now is feeling Derek, Henry Ruggs, but he needs someone to love him in this moment. And if nobody else wants to do it, I will. And again, I know a lot of people don't want to hear that, but that's called compassion. And as a wise person once told me, pass it on. Anyway, I digress. Let's get to the Gem Droppin Session today. Let me drop this gem on your melon. Open your mind, let your conscience be free. You're now rolling with your man, Louie T double E. Let me open you up. Get to thinking a little bit. So, shame on you if you step to the old dirty Beckham. ODB, Odell Beckham Jr. is out in Cleveland. I'd be lying to you if I said I was surprised. Who didn't see this one coming? Once head coach in Cleveland, okay, told his players we're moving forward without Odell Beckham Jr. Had him stay away from the facility for 2 straight days as they tried to find resolution to the situation. Once that took place, I said, oh, his ass is gone. And you know what? It's actually not a bad thing for all parties involved. And, I've talked about this over the last year or so. Like, this team has actually been better offensively. They functioned better when he has been out of the lineup, because Baker then doesn't have to worry about getting the football to Odell Beckham Jr. a requisite amount of times so that it pleases him and he's acclimated to what they're doing. You don't have to worry about who's getting touches and who's not. You don't have to worry about Donovan Peoples-Jones being upset at only getting 3 targets. You don't have to worry about Jarvis Landry. He'll do anything. That's the thing you got to love about Jarvis Landry. He'll do everything. He's going to get his. Right? Juice Landry's going to get his. But even if he doesn't, he's going to block. He's going to do all the dirty work, all the little things that you want big-time receivers in this league to do. Like, he'll clean everything up. You don't have to worry about Anthony Schwartz and the amount of targets that he has in a game. So when I look at their situation, I said, and this was last year when he was out, they're better off without him. Which sounds crazy because he's a premier wide receiver in this league when healthy. He's one of the best. The numbers reflect that. But it gets old quick when he doesn't get the ball, he gets frustrated, and then when you do finally throw him the ball, he drops it. And that's another thing. I'm like, Dad, since you want to be petty and spiteful, did you pull up the clip against the Chargers on 4th down when he dropped a shallow crossing route that would have resulted in the first down? Did you put that clip on the shit where you were showing him not getting the football? Because I got 3 or 4 clips of him dropping easy ass passes in critical situations that hurt his team. I got 3 or 4 of those. Pretty sure Dad didn't put that in his little cut up package though. Anyway, Higgins doesn't need 7 targets to be engaged in the game. I want to talk about a couple of things. You know, I like to attack these types of situations from different angles, right? So what went wrong in Cleveland? Let's start there. I think we can all agree that injuries played a huge part in his demise, right? This was a guy that hasn't been healthy the last 2 years. He struggled to stay on the field. Was super productive for them early last year before the injury. Remember the reverse against Dallas to put that game away? Remember the touchdown grab against Cincinnati? Joe Burrow versus Baker Mayfield. They had that shootout 34-30 or whatever it was. Beckham had a big catch for a touchdown again. Like, he was super productive early last year. And remember, they had a come to Jesus moment because remember, Odell Beckham was traded for by John Dorsey. This new group, GM, Barry, head coach, these guys didn't trade for him. They inherited him. So they had to make sure that he was on board with the vision that they had for the team moving forward. And he seemed to be on board with that. And everything was going well, and then he got hurt again last year. And then he's back this year and he's hurt again. And then when he's playing, he's not productive. And because he's not productive, he's not getting the football. So I think we can all agree that injuries were the main reason he wasn't productive in Cleveland. When he was healthy in Cleveland, he was productive. When he wasn't healthy, that's when he wasn't productive. It's really simple. I think, and the reason he's gone now isn't because he wasn't productive, is because he's starting to become a disruption in the locker room, not being productive. It's one thing if you're upset, you're on the sideline, and you're kicking field goal nets, and you're slamming helmets. That's one thing. It's another thing when your dad starts to get involved, and he's putting out toxic energy, and then you got LeBron James talking about free OBJ, and you've got the power to put all of this shit to rest. You can pull the plug on all of this noise outside of the facility, and you don't. Which means you are either a co-conspirator in all of this, or you are green lighting all of this. Either way, it sounds like you want out. We can make that happen. They wanted to trade him, but I told you guys, a trade for Odell Beckham Jr. was more likely in the offseason than it was during the season because no one was trying to inherit the amount of money he was due for the remainder of the season. It's a lot of money. And every team isn't walking around with $8 million to hand out. A lot of teams are strapped for cash at this point of the season right now, especially in a season where the cap went down. So I didn't think anybody would trade for him for that specific reason. Not because there's a lack of talent here, or not because you think he's a headache. This league has put up with headaches at the receiver position for years. If you're talented enough, they'll put up with the headache. We've seen that story before. I think the most interesting part, we'll get to what's next for him here in a second. I think the most interesting thing that I want to dissect, and I want to pose this question to you guys out there, is what is Odell Beckham Jr.'s legacy to this point? Man started off with a bang. One of the greatest catches we've ever seen in NFL history on a Sunday night versus the Dallas Cowboys. Put him on the map and made him this megastar. He puts up these cartoonish numbers for the Giants, but falls out of favor in that locker room and gets traded. And the trade kind of came out of nowhere. We really didn't see it coming, but you could also see the writing on the wall. He's traded. It's a new lease on life. He's with his best friend, Jarvis Landry. It looks like a great move. It looks like a win for all parties involved. Jabril Peppers started to spread his wings and fly away in New York. All of the guys that they got in that trade seem to have played well. You know, sans for one or two guys, but you felt good if you were the Giants about what you got back. And the Browns got an elite NFL wide receiver. It seemed like a good move for all parties involved. He's had one of the most disappointing runs we've seen a star receiver have after changing teams. He hasn't looked like the Odell Beckham Jr. we were expecting him to look like. There's a couple of 1,000-yard seasons in there in Cleveland, but they weren't 1,500-yard seasons like they were in New York. There weren't dominant seasons where you go, oh my God, this guy is unstoppable. They were solid. Then there were injury-plagued seasons the last 2 years. What is his legacy right now as we sit here, November 5th, 2021? This was a guy that I believe was in the famed 2014 NFL draft class of wide receivers with Mike Evans, and Kelvin Benjamin was in that draft class in the first round, and all of them had 1,000 yards in their first season. All of them. It was like 4 or 5 of those dudes in that 1 year. I think Brandon Cooks was in that draft as well. Like, that 2014 NFL draft class was loaded at receiver, and he was a part of it. But Mike Evans has continued to put up big numbers every year, no matter who the quarterback is in Tampa Bay. Brandon Cooks, nobody seems to love Brandon Cooks, but all he does is put up 1,000-yard seasons. And we may talk about Cooks getting concussions. He always puts numbers up, no matter what. Kelvin Benjamin is out of the league, obviously, but I guarantee you there's 1 or 2 more receivers in that draft class that have been outstanding. And then there's Odell Beckham Jr., who looked like he was going to be the crown jewel of that draft class at the receiver position. Among all of these stars, all of these big-time receivers, Odell Beckham Jr. looked to be the brightest star out of the group. And now we're talking about him being available at the midpoint of the 2021 NFL season because the team he got traded to bailed on him, decided he wasn't worth the headache. And now he's looking for employment, and he's going to find it. And we're going to talk about that here in a second. What's next? But what is his legacy? How do you view him right now? Obviously, he's not a Hall of Fame player right now. He was trending in that direction when his career started. Is he still a superstar wide receiver in your eyes? Is he just a guy? What is Odell Beckham Jr. to you? When you hear the name Odell Beckham Jr. and you hear wide receiver, what do you think? Are you scared of him anymore? Does he strike fear in your heart? If you're a fan of a team and you've got to go up against Odell Beckham Jr., are you worried anymore? What is his legacy? How do you view him? I wonder how other players around the league view him. I wonder how other coordinators around the league, offensive and defensive coordinators, view him. Obviously, Kevin Stefanski had enough. Baker Mayfield was never on the same page with him. I wonder what his legacy is right now. Super talented. No one's debating that. But he might end up being one of these what if guys. That's one of the worst lists you can end up on. What if? What's next for him? Let's finish up this conversation. What's next for him? Well, obviously the team that first comes to mind is New Orleans, because that was the team that was interested in trading for him, but the numbers weren't going to make sense for them. We already know the Saints had issues putting the guys under the cap that they already had under on their team. Like, it was a struggle just to get everybody worked into the cap the way that it was this season, as is. So to bring a guy on that's due $8 million the remainder of the season just didn't make sense. Again, much like I talked about with the Von Miller deal, unless you were willing to eat some of this salary, a huge portion of it, I can't make this deal with you. And the Browns are like, nah, I'm not eating shit. Figure it out. Here's the thing. The Saints, to me, are the most logical destination for him for this reason. They don't have a number one wide receiver. Not one in sight. And with Michael Thomas tripping and not playing again this season, they're really hurting at receiver. Here's the conundrum, though. You got Taysom Hill and Trevor Siemian at quarterback. If I'm Odell Beckham Jr., I don't want any parts of that. None. But Sean Payton will figure out ways to get him the football. Trust me. He'll get the football. But that's a tough spot to go into if you're Odell Beckham Jr. I think the best place for him to end up right now, and the team that could use him the most, is the Saints. But it's 1A, 1B for me. The team that I think could use him the most is the Saints. But I just don't know how they get him the football with the quarterback situation being what it is in New Orleans. The other team that I look at that's 1B, that we've been talking about, they got nothing at receiver. Man, Deebo Samuel could use some help. Shanahan is always talking about having a dude at receiver. Here's a chance to go and get one in Odell Beckham Jr. To me, the 49ers make a ton of sense. They need an explosive playmaking wide receiver alongside Deebo Samuel. They currently do not have that on their roster and haven't done a good enough job of drafting that guy over the years. Obviously, AJ Stinkins, aka AJ Jenkins, wasn't this administration, but those are the kinds of guys they've been drafting. They've been drafting Jalen Hurd. They've been drafting Dante Pettis in San Francisco. Now they have Brandon Ayuk, and they're really disappointed in him. They are having issues drafting receivers. Why not go get Odell Beckham Jr.? That's where I would go if I were him. That's what I would do if I were Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch. And I think that would really boost an offense that could use a shot in the arm. You get George Kittle back, you add Odell Beckham Jr. to what is already a premier wide receiver in Deebo Samuel, and all of a sudden, that offense looks drastically different. Because we know the one thing the 49ers are going to do is they're going to run the shit out of the football. That's going to open up things for Odell Beckham Jr. down the field. You're either going to keep a safety deep, or you're going to have a light box and you're going to get the ball rammed down your throat. Which are you going to do? Deebo Samuel isn't a deep threat. He works every part of the field except the deep portion of the field. He's not a guy that's going to beat you deep a lot of times. But he'll kill you in the short to intermediate game. Now you get a guy that can stretch it vertical. That's what Brandon Ayuk was supposed to do. He's not doing that. Odell Beckham Jr. can, though. We'll see what he decides to do. I think that's what's next for him. He has to be very careful about what he does, where he goes, and for how long, because this next portion of his career, wherever he ends up laying down roots, and I don't know if this next place he signs, he might be a 9-game rental for someone, sign for the remainder of this year, then hit the free agent market again in the offseason and try over again. But wherever he decides to plant his roots next is going to be key for his legacy. Because right now, he is, to me, a disappointment. Despite 5 or 6 years of 1,000-yard seasons, whatever it is, whatever that number is, 5 years, 4 years, and some big numbers, especially to start his career, despite some of those years in New York and a couple years with the Browns, this has been a disappointment. He's got to change the narrative. So this next move is going to be huge. But we'll see what he does. We'll track that. We'll see where he ends up. I think it's one or two places. It's New Orleans and New Orleans is home for him. Remember, he went to LSU. He's a New Orleans boy. I wouldn't be shocked if he decided, I want to go home. We'll see if the Bay Area is appealing enough to draw him and lure him away from home. Let's get to our next segment, Thursday Night Leftovers. And I'm on my November, what I like to call my November fast. Not actually fasting, more like being responsible, being more responsible with my diet. Because I know when Thanksgiving gets here, I'm going to pig out. And it's all bets are off. I'm eating apple pie for breakfast. I'm eating, macaroni and cheese and stuffing and, yams for lunch. And I'm following that up with a slice of carrot cake, all the while shoveling down copious amounts of adult beverages. I don't care. And I know I don't care. And I know I'm going to gain 12 pounds because I do it every year. So I always cut out all of the eating. I literally eat salads. I've been eating nothing but cereal. Skimpy bowls of cereal this week. Next week, it's all salads from there on out until Thanksgiving. No alcoholic beverages, no wine, nothing. All of that gets cut out up until Thanksgiving. So what I'm essentially explaining to you is the fact that I have no leftovers. I had a bowl of cereal. I got nothing left. So I'll just give you what I got. But there will be no eating. There are no leftovers. Doesn't mean you can't head to the kitchen and get whatever leftovers you have. Don't let me stop you from eating some delicious, delectable leftovers. I have none to share today. So, let's get into the Thursday night leftovers from the game, shall we? I think we shall. Jets, Colts. Colts get the win 45-30 over the New York Jets in the football game last night. The score does not indicate how one-sided of a beatdown this was. At one point, the score was 42-10 in this game. Jets made it interesting late. Colts pretty much took their foot off the gas pedal, and the game was never in question, but the score doesn't really indicate how lopsided this game was. So we start with the Indianapolis Colts side of things. The first leftover from last night's game. Jonathan Taylor averages 131 yards rushing in the 4 victories the Colts have this season. Meanwhile, in their 5 losses, he's averaging 59 rush yards. And also, as a caveat, last night's 19 rushing attempts for Jonathan Taylor, the most he's had in any game this season. So that tells you that the Indianapolis Colts do a really good job with their two-headed monster of him and running back Nyheim Hines, so they don't overwork Taylor. And you know what? It's a good thing for Taylor because Wisconsin ran his ass like he was a thoroughbred. I mean, they really gave him the football a ton. And so there was more tread off of those tires than the average rookie running back coming into the league. So it's good that they're not overworking him in Indianapolis. That said, the more Jonathan Taylor, the better for this team, it seems. And when he's successful, when he's putting up big numbers, they're winning football games. So I think that's something they need to take into consideration. Doesn't mean that he has to have more carries. Obviously, he's had games where he's had 14 carries like he did against Houston, but still had 145 yards rushing. Last night, he had 172 yards rushing on just 19 carries. Like, he doesn't need to have 27 carries to be effective. But they just need to make sure he's getting the football adequately enough. That's what they need to make sure. His rush count can't be any lower than 15. And it needs to be closer to 20 than 15, to be honest with you. So they need to make mental note of that. When he's successful, this Colts offense is successful and they're winning games. More importantly, they're winning games. Next leftover from last night. Mike White, Jets quarterback, left the game in the first quarter with a forearm injury. Again, I knew it was a nerve injury. Okay. Lost feeling. And you know, all of those nerves are connected to your finger movement and your ability to grip. We've all hit our elbow. They call it your funny bone. And you're like, it's just not funny. Why are you calling it the funny bone? You hit your elbow, everything goes numb. You can't feel, you can't grip, you can't do anything because you just hit a nerve. Have you ever pinched a nerve to where you can't bend your finger? I have before. My shit just stays straight. I can't bend it. One of my fingers. All of this is connected. That's what I'm trying to tell you. I don't know how all of it works, but I know it's all connected. And he banged his forearm and that nerve shut down. And he was explaining to them, I can't grip the football because these three fingers aren't actually working right now. Well, they expect him to be ready for next week's contest against the Buffalo Bills. Guess who else they expect to be ready? You guessed it. Rookie starting quarterback, Zach Wilson. So, what does Robert Saleh do? I need an answer, Robert. And if I were him, I would put this to bed nice and early. Don't wait until next week on Thursday. Or you could play mind games with the Bills. The Bills don't give a shit who you start. They're not shaking in their boots if it's Mike White. So it's not like you're keeping a competitive advantage by not telling the Bills who's starting at quarterback. We have to prepare for Mike White. You know, we have to prepare for both of these quarterbacks. We don't know who's starting. They don't give a shit. Mike White, Zach Wilson, it's all one and the same. They're going to kick their ass anyway. That's how they feel. If I were Robert Saleh, I would announce my starter. If they're both healthy, which the assumption is right now, both of them will be healthy and available for the Bills next week. They've got 10 days off before that game. If that is in fact the case, I would make the announcement early next week. Don't have to do anything right now. It's not necessary. It's not required. But first day of practice, Wednesday next week. Hell, if someone asks me on Tuesday next week, I'd tell them. If Zach's healthy, I'm starting Zach Wilson. He's our quarterback. He's our guy. We drafted him. He needs to play. He needs more reps. That's our guy. That's what I would do. But if Robert lets this thing linger and kind of string it out until the end of the week, you allow for a lot of narratives to be created and started. The last thing you want, and the Jets, I could easily see this going sideways because the Jets are a terrible organization, poorly run. I'm hoping that with Salah there, all of a sudden things start to change, but we will see. I wouldn't be shocked if they fudge this thing. I mean, really, really F this up. Last thing you want is your young rookie quarterback looking over his shoulder. I've explained this whole concept to you. The one position where you don't want a guy looking over his shoulder constantly is quarterback. Every other position can be hyper competitive. You can have multiple tight ends going after one spot as the starter. You can have multiple running backs pushing each other. Same with the wide receiver position, even though you can get multiple receivers and running backs on the field at the same time. Same with tight ends. You don't only get one quarterback on the field. I mean, technically, you get more than one quarterback on the field, but it's not often that you have more than one quarterback on the field and one guy running the show. It's only going to be one guy really running the show. So you don't want that guy looking over his shoulder. It's a recipe for disaster. Nothing good comes of a quarterback looking over his shoulder, wondering, if I make a mistake, is this next guy coming in? Do I have a short leash? That's what happened to Carson Wentz in Philadelphia. Guy was on the verge of being the MVP of the league. Got injured, and in comes Nicholas Foles, and he lost all of his confidence. Why? Because he was constantly looking over his shoulder, which is why the Eagles traded Nicholas Foles. They didn't want him looking over his shoulder. Then they went and did the dumbest thing ever, which I know why they did it, but they had to know that the reason you traded Nicholas was for this exact reason. And even though you probably explained to him that this guy is not a threat to you, he's just your backup, they went and drafted Jalen Hurts, and that was the worst thing. It was the thing that sent him over the top, which is why his season was so poor last year. Mentally, he thought, okay, I'm free now. They traded Nick Foles, and then they go out and draft Jalen Hurts. What an idiot Howie Roseman is. Anyway, the moral of the story, the point I'm trying to make, is they need to put their young quarterback at ease to let him know you're in no danger here, okay? Mike White is your backup. As long as you're healthy, you're our starter. End of discussion. Nothing else to discuss. Everybody else out there can talk about what Mike White has or hasn't done, or what you have or haven't done. But in our eyes, you're our future. That's all we care about, is you getting out on the field and continuing to learn and grow. That's what Robert Saleh should do. Will he do that? I don't know. We will see. Next Thursday night leftover. Let's continue with the Jonathan Taylor angle here. Jonathan Taylor is currently the only back in the league this season to average 9 yards or more per carry in 2 games this season. First of all, do you know, with a minimum of 10 carries in that game, you know how hard it is to average 7, 8 yards a carry, 6 yards a carry in a game? You know how hard it is? Now try averaging 9 or 10. He's done it twice. Did it last night. He averaged 9.1 yards last night. And then he averaged 10 yards. You know how hard it is to average 10 a pop in an NFL game? Now, granted, he had some big runs in both of those games. Had a 78-yarder last night, had an 83-yarder against the Texans. Still, you know how hard it is? All it takes is one negative run, and that average comes tumbling down. 14 carries, 145 yards against the Texans. 19 carries, 172 yards last night against the Jets. Only back in the league right now to be able to say that. Yikes, he's been outstanding this year. This guy's good. He's leading the league in rushing now with Henry out. He's up in the 800s now, is Jonathan Taylor. Henry's in the 900s. He's going to pass him next week, more likely than not. If not next week, the week after that. This kid's amazing. He's going to lead the league in rushing this year if he stays healthy. And remember, he led all rookies in rushing last year, and he was pretty up there in terms of, overall. Probably top 10 in rush yards last year was Jonathan Taylor. And he got a late start last year, if you recall. They weren't giving him a lot of touches early in the season. He wasn't supposed to be the main guy. They thought Marlon Mack was going to be that. And then he got hurt in week 1, and they kind of eased him in. Took him about 3 or 4 weeks. Then they finally started giving him the football, and he exploded. And he hasn't let up since. He's fantastic. Next leftover. Jet safety Marcus Maye left the game last night with a lower body injury, was able to walk off in his own power, but did it very gingerly, and it did not look good. It was a non-contact injury, and anytime one of those happens, you immediately think the worst. It's either an ACL or it's an Achilles. In the case of Marcus Maye, it was, in fact, an Achilles injury. His season is done. But more importantly, he is a prime example of why guys can't stand a franchise tag. That is the exact reason right there. Wanted long-term money, tried to get it this offseason. Jets wouldn't let him go. They franchise tagged him. He comes back. He plays under the tag. He's set to get a massive payday in the offseason. Tears his Achilles or ruptures his Achilles. Now, he's not getting anything next year. He's not getting a big deal. He'll get a 1-year prove-it deal from someone next year. That's it. He may never be the same. And look, in today's climate, with doctors having the kind of medicine and abilities that they have and all these different tools at their disposal, he should be back, but everyone's not created equal. And all surgeries don't go the same, and everyone doesn't heal the same. Bottom line is, this is why guys want long-term guarantees. Give me the 5-year, $87 million deal with 47 of it guaranteed, so that I know I'm taken care of no matter what happens. It may be cool to get $17 million in 1 year. That's a lot of money for 1 year of service. But it only is okay if you can get to free agency and get that long-term deal. If anything happens and you're not able to get to that long-term bag, this is the danger right here. Robert Saleh has already come out and said, I feel for this guy. Like, I really, truly do feel for him. I'm hurting for him. Because you know what it is. He's not getting to that long-term bag next year. That sucks. Finally, last leftover from last night's game, Carson Wentz. Last night marked the 6th time this season that Wentz had 2 or more touchdown passes in a game this season without an interception. 6th time in 9 games he's done that this season. He only did it once last season with the Eagles. Once. Man's done it 6 times already. He's 17-3 right now this year. Honestly, that one game against Tennessee last week was a bit of a setback. And one of those games that said, this isn't a start of something bad. Him going back down the road he was last year. No, he's fine. Wentz has been outstanding this year. He's reminding everyone of why the Eagles traded up to number 2 to get him, and why everyone thought the Eagles have figured out the quarterback position for the next decade plus. He's showing everybody that again. He's playing exceptional football this year. And because they're 4-5, a lot of people are just whisking him away. I don't know who was injured last year, and I can't remember, and I don't know who's balling out, but he's in the discussion for comeback player of the year or most improved. You can call it whatever the hell you want to call it. He's playing at a high level. That throw to Michael Pittman in the end zone, are you serious? No, accurate. You have to throw that football to get it in there. There's a lot of traffic in there. He zings it in there right where Pittman, all he literally had to do was put his hands. The Colts team really dangerous. They can just find a way to beat some good teams. And they're going to have some coming up on the schedule here shortly. They can find a way to beat some good teams. They've got a shot. They've got good quarterback play. They've got an extraordinary running back. And you're hoping they get some guys back at receiver eventually. And this is it's a really solid defense. Wentz has been outstanding this season. So that's going to do it for Thursday Night Leftovers. Let's get to the final segment of the show. And you know what it is. Money, money, yeah, yeah. Money, money, yeah, yeah. Let's get it. My money picks of the week. Now, sometimes I got to look at the championship strap to remind myself that I'm that guy. This year has been rough. Right now, the kid is 73-49. I'm 8 games out of first place. I am getting my ass kicked thoroughly. I'm disappointed, to say the least. But I'm not defeated. I'm a champion for a reason. I've been down before and I've rallied back and I've won. This is not new territory for me. It's not uncharted territory. But you don't want to live in this space. You don't want to live having to play from behind. That shit's not fun. 2 years ago, I lived in this space. Down the entire year, rallied back, won it late. Last year, I was a front runner. I was ahead from the jump, never gave it up, and I'd like to do that. That's fun. That's not what we're doing this year. Now I got to get on the horse. I got 9 weeks to correct what has really, I got 10 weeks to correct what has been an abysmal start to the season. Just a horrid start. Capped off by last week's dreadful performance. I'm better than last week. I've never been worse. But the beauty of it is, here's my picks this week. I look to correct all of the mistakes I made last week and moving forward. Can't just be 1 week. This has to be consistent. That's the only way I'm going to claw my way back into this thing. If nobody else believes in me, I believe in me. That's what's the most important. I believe in me. Here are my week 9 money picks of the week. So I'm already on the board with the Colts. So that's a good thing. Let's drop some coins on that. So feel good about that. All right, let's head to Sunday. Saints hosting the Atlanta Falcons. NFC South family business. You know how the family do it. I try not to stick my nose in business that doesn't pertain me. That's how I get myself into trouble. This one is a toughie because I know the Falcons are capable of going into New Orleans and winning this game. Taysom Hill has practiced this week. The assumption is he will start at quarterback. I do not love Taysom Hill, the quarterback. I love Taysom Hill, the Swiss Army knife, do-it-all, player. I do not like Taysom Hill, the quarterback. However, is Taysom Hill, the quarterback, better than Trevor Siemian? I don't know. Maybe, maybe not. I'm not sure. I'm just tired of picking the Falcons and losing. I do know that. I'm tired of picking the Falcons and getting burned. So I'm just going to go with the Saints. I told you when I don't know, and I told you I don't know about this family business. When I don't know and I'm not sure, and you know, with family business, all bets are off. Forget about the records. I just go with the home team. That's the rule of thumb. It's called the rule of I don't know. I don't know. Okay, pick the home team and keep it pushing. Denver at Dallas. This one is pretty damn easy. Washington played Denver last week. They stink. They traded their best defensive player away in Von Miller. Means they're worse now than they were a week ago. He didn't play last week. Doesn't matter. He's not playing for the Broncos moving forward. The Broncos aren't good on offense. The Broncos are subpar on defense. The Cowboys are going to annihilate them. Whether Dak Prescott plays or not, which I think he is going to play, is really irrelevant here. Even if it's Cooper Rush, he'll be able to do enough. And even if he stinks it up and he wets the bed, their defense will stifle the Denver Broncos offense. I'll take the Cowboys to win in Big D in week number 9. Patriots at the Carolina Panthers. The Panthers, they're an enigma. Now, they're getting healthy defensively. They look more like their old defensive selves last week with the additions of Shaq Thompson back to the lineup and now Stephon Gilmore. Both had interceptions in the week number 8 win at Atlanta. Now they're going home, and I wouldn't be shocked if their defense confused, frustrated, and turned over Mac Jones. Who? Mac Jones. The miggity, Mac. Bow, the miggity, Mac. But I also wouldn't be surprised, and I don't know who the hell is going to be at quarterback. Darnold's dealing with an injury. If Phillip Walker has to be the starter, it could get ugly. I don't really care which one of these. The last time Belichick saw Sam Darnold, he had the man seeing ghosts. If he gets his hands on Phillip Walker, he's going to tear him a new one. Either way, I'm taking Belichick and his ability to perplex these two quarterbacks, whomever's at quarterback and under center, and help the Patriots get the win. Give me the Patriots on the road to win that football game. Vikings. Oh, yeah. Drop some coins on those. Let's drop some coins on all of those games real quick. Let's drop some coins for a second. Part of the reason I've been stinking it up, I ain't been giving these picks out on Friday like I'm supposed to. I ain't been dropping no coins on it. Let's drop these coins, man. Let's get these dubs. All right, next game. Minnesota at Baltimore. Vikings coming off of a gut punch of a loss to the Dallas Cowboys on Sunday Night Football. Had every opportunity to win that game, get over 500. Instead, they fall to 3-4 in the season. They could get back to 500, but it's going to be a tall task because they have to go to the Ravens, who are coming off of a bye week. The Ravens have been up and down this season. The last time we saw them, they got their asses stomped. I'm talking about A-Town stomped, mud hole in them at home by the Bengals. So they should be pissed off. They're a better team than the Minnesota Vikings. I think they'll prove it. I think that this rest and this time off gave them a chance to, hit the reset button, recalibrate, and they're going to come out and they're going to play good football. Give me the Baltimore Ravens over the Minnesota Vikings. Drop some coins on it. All right. Cincinnati hosting the Cleveland Browns, AFC North family business. If these two teams say they ain't did it, then they ain't did it. But if they did, well, that's family business. And this is of the AFC North variety. And this is big for both teams. Browns coming off of a loss at home, one that they thought they could get against Pittsburgh. That's a crushing loss in the division, 15-10. You trade you release Odell Beckham Jr. So you had a bit of a circus this week. You're looking to fold up the tent and get back to business. And you're sitting at 4-4 right now. Not where you thought you would be this point of the season. But there's still time for you to turn it up. And maybe this distraction no longer being here is exactly what you need to get back on the right track. We'll see. As for the Cincinnati Bengals, they're a team that They were riding the high of going to Baltimore and slaying one of the AFC North bullies, punching them right in their mouth, in their own building. I mean, what more can I say about what they did in week number 7? But then to follow that up with the dud they dropped in week 8, blowing an 11-point lead with 6 minutes to go in the game and losing to Mike White and the Jets, giving up over 500 yards of total offense, they probably are ashamed of themselves right now. That said, they can bounce back. They're still leading. Well, they were leading. They're still among one of the best teams record-wise in the AFC North. Now they got to figure out a way to knock off the Cleveland Browns, who aren't playing great football. But that could change at moment's notice. Interesting game, Battle of Ohio. Generally, the home team wins this game, so I'm sticking with Cincinnati, although I wouldn't be shocked if Cleveland got them. But I think Cincinnati is due for a bounce back, and they'll do exactly that. Give me the Browns, or excuse me, give me the Bengals in this game. Drop some coins on it. This next game, I don't really have a lot to say. I'm going to just give it to you real quick. Buffalo at Jacksonville. The Jaguars stink. They're one of the worst teams in the league. The Bills, conversely, are one of the best teams in the league. They're going to go to Jacksonville. They're going to have their way with the Jaguars and move on. Give me the Bills in a laugher. Drop some coins on it. Next game on the docket, Houston at Miami. This is a really good matchup. I'm hoping people fell asleep behind the wheel on this one. I'm hoping that everyone just assumes, oh, it's Houston and it's the young kid from Stanford starting at quarterback, Davis. And, yeah, they're going to stink again. Oh, no, we suck again. I said, is Tyrod ready to come back yet? I remember he was close to coming back last week. Didn't play. Well, this week, Tyrod Taylor is healthy, he's practicing, and he's slated to start on Sunday. Yes. Give me the Texans on the road to beat the Dolphins, who are struggling. I'll take the Texans. Remember, they were super competitive with Tyrod Taylor in the lineup. As soon as he got hurt, things went downhill. I'll take my chances with Tyrod. Maybe he's rusty. Maybe he's not as good as he was. Maybe the loss of Ingram. Did you realize Mark Ingram was 3rd in the league in rushing? Did you know that? I did not know that. He was playing that well this season. Unbelievable. Maybe that's why Brandon Cooks was so pissed off when he got traded. Either way, maybe they miss him. Maybe they don't. We'll find out, but I'm rolling with the Texans. I may regret that, but drop some coins on it. Vegas Raiders at the New York Giants. I struggled with this one. Thought about this one for a really long time. Why? Because I said this has been a heavy week for the Raiders. A really taxing week, emotionally, mentally draining, right? Like Derek Carr's face was red from crying. You could tell. It was a rough one. And you don't just get over something like that. When you had a guy that's been your teammate for the last 2 years, and as Derek Carr said, he just texted me that same day about golfing tips. Like, you walk past his locker and he's not there and you know he's not coming back. That's tough. He was one of your brothers. He's still one of your brothers, even though he's no longer a part of your team. That's rough. This is the same team that just had to deal with their head coach being run out of town. Like, they've dealt with a lot this season, have the Raiders. But what they've also done is they've overcome it every single time. Now, it helps when you're playing the Eagles or you're playing the Giants or you're playing some NFC East garbage-ass team. That helps. Well, they got one of those garbage-ass NFC East teams here in the Giants. The Giants are capable of beating them, but they had their own issues this week. With COVID-19 running rampant throughout their building and having to shut it down and send guys home and this, that, and the third, they're all kinds of disorganized and dysfunctional. They stink anyway. And then you add that into the mix. Give me the Raiders to go to New York and take care of the Giants. Give me the Raiders. Drop some coins on it. Chargers at Eagles. Again, another one of these games. I wouldn't be shocked if the Eagles put pressure on Justin Herbert and won this football game. Their defensive line is fully capable. They're playing with confidence after the shellacking they put on the Detroit Lions a week ago. I wouldn't be shocked if the Eagles started to play really competent football. The Chargers are very beatable. I'm still mad that we didn't beat them in week 1. Still upset about that. Very beatable football team. Can't stop the run. Well, luckily enough for them, the Eagles don't run it. Not at least in the traditional sense. Their quarterback is a bona fide running back, though. And if you can't stop read option, good luck. You're going to need it. Because he's going to run it at least 11 times. Whether it be on a broken play, he doesn't see anything that he likes, he takes off and runs, there's pressure he's got to avoid, and he takes off and runs, or they call a run. Either way, he's going to run. If you can stop him, you'll stop. It's going to be a long game, one that the Eagles will have a chance to win. If they can protect him, he will carve that Eagles secondary up. Either way, I just don't like the Eagles in this spot. I may regret this because they're very capable of winning this game. Give me the Los Angeles Chargers. Drop some coins on it. So this game isn't what we thought it was going to be. Packers at Chiefs. This is supposed to be Rodgers versus Mahomes. We were supposed to get it last year. Mahomes wasn't healthy. We had to settle for Rodgers versus Matt Moore. This year, we're going to have to settle for Mahomes versus Jordan Love. It's not quite what we thought it was going to be, but I'm anxious to see Jordan Love in an NFL game. I don't know about you. It doesn't matter what I'm anxious to see. It just matters who I think is going to win. I'm tired of picking the Chiefs and them letting me down. But that said, could the Packers do it 2 weeks in a row? Last week, it's one thing to do it with Aaron Rodgers because it's Aaron freaking Rodgers. Like, he can overcome almost anything, you feel like. Especially in the regular season, as I mentioned. This is Jordan Love. This is a little different. This is his first NFL start. There's a lot of pressure on him. He's going to be nervous. He's going to make mistakes. Are the Chiefs defensively good enough to take advantage of a rookie quarterback that's going to be wide-eyed and really, really nervous, making his first career NFL start? Or is he going to find it easy to move the football on his Chiefs defense like everybody else is? I don't know. I've said this. The Chiefs feel like they're getting a little bit better on defense. But I also acknowledge that the competition the last 2 out of 3 weeks wasn't all that great. I'm going to take my chances with the Chiefs again. They're at home. I don't trust Jordan Love. We'll see what the Packers can do. They got by barely last week with all the guys out. You can have all those guys back, but if you don't have Aaron Rodgers, it's tough for me to think you got a chance. Give me the Kansas City Chiefs. Drop some coins on it. Arizona Cardinals, San Francisco 49ers. This is another game that I need to win. There are certain games every week on the schedule. There are usually like 4 or 5 that are swing games, I like to call them. Games you need to win. There are about 8 to 9 games every week that just about everybody agrees on. And then you got the 3 or 4 people that try to be bold and want to go outside the box, want to be forward thinkers. Oh, I'm going to pick Jacksonville this week. I think they have a chance. And I got caught doing that shit a couple of times. I won't lie. But you get people like that where I may do it on one of those games, one game that everybody else is picking the other team. You get those people that do it on 4 or 5 games. They just start picking random ass teams. Like, I'm already down. The only way I'm going to catch up is if I pick some shit. Okay, well, you're just going to dig yourself an even deeper hole. I'm not looking to do that. I'm looking to be smart and calculated with some of these moves that I take, some of these risks that I take. Here's one of them. NFC West family business. You know how the family do it. And in case you don't, let me explain to you that there's something about this 49ers team when it comes to the Cardinals. They know how to play their ass. Okay? Last year, Cardinals had a chance to get into the postseason. All they needed to do was win their final 2 games. That's it. One of the final 2 games was against A 49ers team featuring CJ Beathard. Couldn't beat him. In their own building. Couldn't beat him. Scored like 10 or 13 points and lost. This year earlier, Cardinals started 7-0. Everybody's wowed by the Cardinals. Oh my God, look at this Cardinals team. They're unstoppable on offense. 49ers held them to 13 points and had their ass. Had their ass on the ropes. They know how to play these boys. That's why it's family business. This time they're at home, which isn't a good thing. Levi Stadium has not been kind to the San Francisco 49ers. Haven't won a game there since 1972 when the stadium opened. That said, got to end this streak at some point. Kyler Murray and DeAndre Hopkins both listed as questionable. Neither have practiced this week. Kyler Murray's going to play. He's going to play. And their head coach, Cliff Kingsbury, has already come out and said, hey, he doesn't have to practice at all this week to play on Sunday. I know. But healthy Kyler Murray struggles with the San Francisco 49ers. What do you think hobbled Kyler Murray is going to do? Y'all smell that? I smell a 49ers upset. Give me the Niners to beat the Arizona Cardinals. Drop some coins on it. I need it. Don't piss me off, San Francisco. Tennessee at the Los Angeles Rams. Sunday night football. This was going to be a great game if Derrick Henry was healthy. This was going to be a great game. I'm actually excited to see old man Peterson, AD. Adrian Peterson. I'm actually excited to see him. But I know he's no Derrick Henry. I'm well aware. And I know the Titans, they need Derrick Henry in the run game like we need fresh air to breathe. We need oxygen. They're going to be in trouble. If AD doesn't come out and put up one of those patented classic AD performances, which I don't see him doing in his first game back, they're going to lose. The Rams should win this game. And I'm sad because we were robbed of what was going to be a really good game with Derrick Henry. Titans might hang tough, but they're not going to beat the Rams. Give me the Rams at the crib to take care of business. Drop some coins on it. And I'll leave the Monday game for Monday's podcast, but you already know. You already know what it is. You can look at the game and know what I'm going to do, but we'll talk about that on Monday. I should have a Monday podcast. Why? Because my team doesn't play this week, so I get to watch all of the games. Yay! Should be fun. I think. We'll see. Anyway, those are my money picks of the week. I need it. Drop some coins on it. I need it. I need to be 12-2, 13-1 this week. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. I got to start putting some extraordinary weeks together. Back to back to back to back. Anyway, that's going to do it for me, your man Louie T. I do have a couple of super chats. I want to go ahead and knock those out real quick before we get out of here. Vincent Coe, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. My guy Vincent Coe writes, is that a Friday podcast I see? It's been a minute. Yes, it's a Friday podcast, Vincent Coe. You're right. It's been a while. Haven't done one since week 6. Shame on me. I will admit, I've been slacking. All right. I hear your jokes. Okay, I hear your jokes. But yeah, back in the saddle feels good. Feels good to be here on a Friday doing what I do best. SLJ James, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. SLJ James writes, Louie T, my team is so damn bad. If you remember me, I'm the Jets fan. Shaking my head. I remember you. Your team is bad. But you got a quarterback. maybe 2. And if you get it right with Zach Wilson, it'll change your organization. It'll change the face of your franchise. If you got it wrong, again, like you did with Dirty Chez, it'll set you back. And you'll be the same old Jets. Same old Jets. So we'll see. You got to take your lumps. You knew it wasn't going to just turn around like that with a brand new head coach and a brand new quarterback and a lot of turnover on the roster. You had to know that this was going to be coming. You're going to take 2 steps back to try to eventually go 4 steps forward. But we'll see if that happens or not. You got to figure out the quarterback position. If you guys can figure that out, you may have a chance to turn it around a lot sooner than you think. So with that said, I'm going to glide to the side, get out of here, and allow you to get your weekend kicked off the right way. I'm going to say this. This is really petty of me. I'll say this first because as soon as I make this statement, I'm going to get the hell out of here. Get off the bench, get in the game, and kick it with me, your man, Louie T. I know there are a lot of Wizards fans out there, and I just want to tell you that my Memphis Grizzlies are going to beat you tonight. So you're going to have a loss courtesy of my Memphis Grizzlies tonight. You are welcome, and I'll see you on Monday. Have a good one.
LouieTeeNetwork.